Good morning and welcome to the second class for the parenting for kindergarten through 4th grade. We have a small group here this morning, but I know there's some of you listening online here. So this age group is like the best age, I think. They're forming their personality, they're getting into school, they're building friendships. They're still innocent, which is awesome because they'll still listen to you. And they haven't hit the teenage years, but this is the age that they need the most work as a parent. The most, and I don't want to say work, I mean your ability to influence and train and mold their characters, and that's what we're going to talk about. Most of us know Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know I have the plans for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." We know this scripture very much, but I think I tend to apply it to what I think my future will be. But your future obviously should include your children. How much do you think about that? How often do you think about your future? You know, your career, maybe your career path, or just maybe how you're going to pay the bills, right? Your family, your extended family. How often do you think about your parenting in that way? And what are your dreams? I'm going to ask the ladies here, what dreams do you have for your children?
Become disciples.
Okay, that's a great one. She said, Jenny said to become disciples.
Yeah. To be compassionate. I mean, I think with that encompasses a lot, but I think to be compassionate and just people that can interact well with, in healthy ways with others, and just see that as they progress. Because, I'm sorry, that's a longer answer, but when you see the extremes of some of their personality traits at this stage, I want to help them be balanced when they grow up, whether it be,
because they're so
help develop their characters, yes, whether they're the emotions or whatever.
Yeah. So Megan said just for them to be overall well-rounded and balanced and compassionate people that really maybe being mature adults.
Having good relationships.
Good relationships.
To be a good friend.
To be a good friend.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Shannon?
My situation is kind of complex, but it involves an adopted child, so it would be for her to not have any scars from their messed up situation.
Yeah, so an adopted child, for them not to have scars from the past that would continue to interfere with their life as they move forward, or help them maybe put those in perspective.
Cycle of the situation that she was
Breaking cycles, that's great. Great. So we just had someone else join us, and we're talking about dreams that we have for our children. Yeah, if you have anything to share, just let me know. Okay. So those are important things to think about, and think about often, and keep them on your heart, and think about, what you want to pray to God for your future to be for your children. So day to day, oh boy, you're working, you're getting home, you've got the kids, you got homework, you got to get baths, you got to clean the house, you got to fix the meals. There's so much going on in a day that it's easy to lose focus of those things. But honestly, without a plan, it's difficult to, I don't say difficult, it's you've got to keep that in front of you, even though in the midst of all of that. I'll just share a little bit about Charlie and I. You may also know me as Ross's mother. So when I talk about my kids, you'll know that's one of them. But and then Nikki Brown is the other one. We just have the two children, but Nikki was 5 and Ross was about 2 when we became Christians. We had been married 10 years, and we had a very tumultuous marriage going on for many reasons, but we became Christians, and we decided we saw very quickly that we weren't equipped for parenting, but we did see that we wanted our kids to become Christians. That was really one of the first things we started praying about, was that we did want our kids to be honest and compassionate and kind people and full of integrity that had a very long-lasting relationship with God. But we didn't have a clue how to get there. Not a clue. So if you feel that way, you're in good company here, I hope. So you do have to understand maybe your foundation that you come into your parenting relationship with your children with, whether you're married or single or have adopted children, or no matter what your situation is. These are things that you have the ability to influence and take a hold of. So that's the good news, is that it is up to you. Now, if you have a spouse, it's good, of course, that you can work together and have a support there. Charlie's family solved issues by yelling and screaming, and of course that's not resolving anything. My family was the opposite. They were very quiet and appeared to be problem-free, but we didn't have any problems because we didn't talk about problems. So no problems got resolved. So you can see the clash that we had when we started realizing that we were on very different pages, and that wasn't going to resolve things. It wasn't going to teach our children the things that we wanted to instill in them, because we didn't want them to be yellers and we didn't want them to be avoiders either. So I was grateful that at least we saw that in ourselves. We had a long, long way to go, and we didn't always know how to get there, but we did see that in each other. So we did decide we were going to have a plan. Last week, Charlie talked about parenting with a purpose. And I think that's just really maybe something that you can plant in your brain here, that you do have to have some kind of purpose to your parenting. Just like a purpose for your life when you became a Christian, you need to have that same purpose with your parenting. Something that transcends generations, it builds character, instills confidence, and modeling the character of Jesus. Because that's really what, you have this great opportunity you learned as an adult to follow Jesus. Your children will grow up understanding what that really means, but they've got to see that in action every day. Wow, what a challenge, right? So I recommend very, very highly. This is just an old book, an oldie but a goodie. It's Boundaries with Kids, and it's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. Maybe some of you have heard of the Boundary books. They've been out for years. But this one was I'm a very practical knowledge kind of person. If I can hear it and I can understand how to put it into practice, then I can imitate that. So this book is very full of just really awesome tips and understanding where you're going. And you can see the pages are kind of yellow. It's been around our house a long time, and there's a lot of pages folded down. It's good to read over and over again through the years. I just think it's just a great book. So what is character? When we became Christians, again, we just really didn't know where we were going. But one of the things that really converted us and helped us to be interested in studying the Bible was some people that we met at a Super Bowl party. We saw their children, and they had us over for dinner. Their children were amazing, at least by our standards. They were They were awesome. They were friendly, they were giving, they were happy, they were obedient, they were helping babysit our children. Oh my goodness, I remember talking with Charlie afterwards, we're like, how do we get kids like that? It's like, where did they get these kids? We want those kids. We got in the wrong line at the store, right? So, oh my goodness. So that was really something that pulled us in greatly because, of course, you love your children, and you want the best for your children. So that really stuck out to us. But we realized that, as we studied the Bible, that our characters needed work. And that's what we really had to work on over time with our children, was building character. And what did that mean? So, as far as parenting with a purpose, I want you, later on to go home and talk about with your spouse, or if you don't have a spouse, write down what you want your children's character to look like. What kind of characteristics, not just in general terms. I want them to have a good character. Well, what does that mean? I want them to be honest. I want them to be full of integrity. I want them to have good relationships. The list goes on and on. So, focus on maybe 5 and decide with your spouse together. If you don't have a spouse, find a partner, find a parenting partner, perhaps another single mom. What are you doing with your kids? Can you be my partner in parenting here? To, buddy up with somebody so that you can call them and discuss these things, maybe on a regular basis. How's it going? What am I seeing in my kid's character? Be honest with each other. Proverbs 22, we all know this one. 22 verse 6, train a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not turn from it. This is a promise from God. And I always have to step back and remember what a promise from God means, right? So it's hard to see those promises come true sometimes because they're just happening as we move along. We forget, okay, maybe my life would have been like this. I'm just 100% sure that if we didn't become Christians, that Charlie and I would be divorced. And Charlie and I talk about this once in a while, like, okay, would Nikki be married to the man that she's married to and have the incredible children that she has? Probably not. Would Ross be the man that he is? He wouldn't be in the ministry. There's a whole host of things that the what ifs. I don't like those what ifs. I am so grateful for the way that things has transpired over time. So it is a promise from God. We don't always know when our kids will come to know God, have a relationship with God.
Hey, she has no idea what she's talking about. You guys are saying that?
My son just walked in, so. Good morning. He says I don't know what I'm talking about, so there we go.
Not true.
Not.
I was just getting ready to.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah. So we don't always have it's not a guarantee when our kids will become Christians. I think we used to have this, really dreamy idea that they hit their teenage years and bam, they become Christians and life is good. Well, that's just the beginning. Sometimes people walk away. Sometimes they become Christians later on. But it is a promise from God that if they know God, that you plant those seeds, that when they're old, okay, old is a long time, you may not even see it come to pass, but they will not turn from God. That's a pretty amazing promise. So I'm going to read just a little bit from the book here, just about character. Character refers to a person's ability and inability, his moral makeup, his functioning in relationships, and how he does tasks. What does he do in certain situations, and how does he do it? when he needs to perform, how will he meet those demands? Can he love? Can he be responsible? Can he have empathy for others? Can he develop his talents? Can he solve problems? Can he deal with failure? How does he reflect the image of God? These are a few issues that define character. If a person's character makeup determines his future, then child rearing is primarily about children developing their character that will make them, I'm sorry, I misread this, about helping children to develop character that will take them through life safely, securely, productively, and joyfully. Parents and those who work with children would do well to keep this in mind. A major goal of raising children is to help them develop character that will make their future go well. I just thought that was pretty impactful. And character doesn't change, character development doesn't change over generations. Things change. Yeah, there's a lot more things with each generation to deal with as far as, internet use and phones and, transgender relationships and all these things that, it's like, okay, what in the world do you do with all that? It used to be, okay, about dating and just more simple things. When do they drive? So, those are all things that you can apply these basic principles to. And if that's who your child is, then that's what they carry out the door with them as an adult. I remember when Nikki left for college, I thought, wow, our parenting is, whew, right in front of us here. She's either going to do great or she's not. Did she make some bad choices? Yeah, some here and there, but, for the most part, she was equipped to handle those next steps of responsibility, which we were very grateful for. I used to think every day, wow, if our kids turn out normal, it's going to be a miracle. But and I'm sure you feel that way many days. But you keep instilling those things in your child, and they will not turn from those things. So character is just simply training and modeling behaviors you want your children to be. This is exactly what Jesus did with his disciples. Training will build character, teach responsibility, and model Christianity all at the same time. So it's not something that you have to break down into separate pieces. It's just something that you're building and talking about, and it instills a whole bunch of good stuff in your kids all at the same time. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing that I know Charlie and I did, and we found very effective, was to make some boundaries, basic rules for our parenting that we decided together, that we were very cohesive on, that we didn't move from, so that if they went to dad, they would get the same kind of response, and if they went to mom, they got the same kind of response. If they went somewhere, they knew that they couldn't test us between us on some of these issues. So you've got to make your boundaries very wide, but very firm. You don't want to make them too difficult for your children to adhere to. Otherwise, it's exhausting for you, and you find yourself, on the wrong side of yelling and, getting frustrated with your children. And that doesn't mean you never will feel that way about your children, but it does help you understand, it gives them the freedom. It's like sending them out in the backyard with a really nice big fence, if you can think of it that way. They know that they can play in that backyard, but if they climb over the fence, that there's going to be consequences. The things that we really stuck, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So sit down, think about those things that you want for your children, but you have to stick to it. There has to be a consistency with your children. The things that we really stuck to was being honest, which meant not lying, being respectful, and loving God, and obeying us. I went to a conference the other day that the hospital sent me to, and it was on public health and the opioid, crisis that's going on in our country right now. And this mom was there. She was this keynote speaker. She wrote a book called Saving Jake, and it was about her son, how they, as a family, who were just a really normal family with kids growing up. When the son got into college, he really started getting into drugs, and he went deep into them to the point of almost losing his life. The book is just about their journey as a family and how it affected every person in the family. It changed the fabric of who they were. It changed their opportunities. It was just, this living nightmare that they never dreamed that they would encounter, and how they were going to get help and all these different things. And the one thing that she said that really stuck out to me was, my son didn't learn to feel his own pain, and he didn't learn how to be responsible for his own actions and decisions. I continually rescued him over and over again, and he never had to learn how to be himself. And I think as a mom, and dad, we want to keep our kids from pain, right? We don't want them to experience it. That's a normal, natural response. But isn't it better to feel the pain from you and the consequences from you than from the world? I mean, she said she had to, after his 5th treatment program, he had like a 3-day period in Colorado in the winter where he didn't have a place to go. He called his mom to ask if, they would fund a hotel room for 3 days, and she had to say no. But it was that finally, that step that really got him understanding, I've burned all my bridges. I'm going to have to do something different here. I can't keep going back to my mom and dad for these kinds of things. So as heartbreaking as it might feel, that's why you have to have a plan. Taking responsibility. Teach the lesson of sowing and reaping. Training your children to understand that bad choices bear consequences. And you have to stick to what you will say is going to happen. Both of you. If you've got a spouse or whomever, if you're not sure, sit down and talk about it first before you say what the punishment is. If you don't clean your room, you can't watch TV tonight. Do not give in on that. That's just a simple example. But you have to do it. One of my children was very hard to get up in the morning. And I won't name names, but that child, we just had to pry him out of bed every morning. And I can't say that we were the best about, enforcing lots of restriction on it. But one day a mom said, well, I just make that child, I have a child that does that. I just make them to go to bed, for whatever time they won't get up and they're late. I just make them go to bed that much earlier each night. I thought, what a great idea. That's pretty simple, isn't it? So there's value in talking to each other as well, saying, what works for your child? Oh, that's a good one. I will name names on this one. One time Ross lied, and we knew that required a little bit bigger punishment, and that was one thing that we did spank for. Now, I'll go into that in just a minute, but so we also we would go to McDonald's every Sunday after church. That was our treat for the week. Well, we packed the lunch for him, his peanut butter sandwich. He sat in McDonald's eating that peanut butter sandwich with the saddest face. Oh my goodness, but it was so effective. I mean, we were almost going, oh yes, this is a good punishment for him, So you've got to find those things that work for your child, and if it's not working, then get some input on what will work or what to do next, because some character traits are harder to weed out than others. And they will test you in this. So if they get the same response over and they see that, that yard, that gate is solid, they'll quit testing because they know that that's the boundary lines. But you know what? They really count on that because they want security. Kids need security. Even though they test you to the limit, they really need security. Excuse me, just like you and I need security.
Yeah.
And don't make it decisions independently each other, especially when there's a bigger decision that's needed. One time, Nikki, as she got a little bit older, she wanted a phone in her room. This is before cell phones. I'm aging myself. So, you know, we kind of gave her a list of things that she had to accomplish, you know, with grades and some other things. I don't remember all what they were to accomplish before she got this phone. And being responsible with it was, of course, you know, a big deal. So she did it. She got the phone, and she worked very hard to get it. A few years later, Ross comes along, and Charlie's calling me going, I'm going to go get Ross a phone, and, you know, we'll be back. I said, whoa, you're going to do what? And I had to remind him, I said, Charlie, don't you remember the hoops that we made Nikki jump through to get this phone? And if you stop and think about where Ross is at, no, he hasn't done the hard work that she did to get this phone. Oh, yeah. So, needless to say, he didn't get the phone that day, which was great. So you have to remind each other, because it's easy to let down your guard a little bit with the second, third, fourth, whatever, however many children you have, because you kind of think you got it down, but each child is a new child. You got to deal with each one in independent ways. So I want to get back to the idea of spanking. That is totally up to you guys. I know that it's not really popular practice anymore, and but I do believe that it can be done very incorrectly. So if you don't think you can do it correctly, then don't do it. Find another punishment. It has to be done very privately, very respectfully. The child needs to know what the offense is. It shouldn't be long-lasting. It was just effective with one of our children who needed a little more discipline. So, but then we also followed it up. Mostly it was just for lying. We would follow it up with the child had to go back to the person that they lied to and say they were sorry and tell them that they lied. So, you know, really that is pretty effective to be able to do that. But you've got to hone those things out. If you think that's the case, you know, whatever it is, the situation, you've got to drill down and get down to the root of it so that your child will understand that that's how you work through problems. That's how you deal with problems. Don't just avoid them. You work through them completely. And I have to say, both my children are married. They have good marriages. I'm just so excited because, you know, based on our marriage, I wouldn't have said if you don't have a plan for your parenting, you're going to parent the way that you were parented. Now, that's not all bad. There's some good things about it. And it's not all good either. So, but that is your default. Who you are and how you were parented is your default. So you will naturally navigate towards, you'll either navigate very much towards it or polar opposite. If if it was very extreme or bad, you might go directly the other way. So that's why a plan together for them to understand God's way is best. They really do have to feel the responsibility of their consequences. There is so much power in that, huge power. Balance, and then my last point is balance, grace, and truth. In 1 Corinthians 13, we know this scripture very well. It defines, this is God's definition of love. And again, I'm very practical. That's what I really like about it. It's like, okay, you ask, what is love? What's the first word, Jenny, comes to your mind I say, what is love?
I think of, I think it's 1 John when it says God is love, so I think God automatically.
Okay, God is love. That's great. What else?
One thing about the scripture, love is patient.
Love is patient. That's right. Yeah. But how do you know, when your kid says, how do you know when you're in love? Well, you could get a whole bunch of different answers.
Sure.
Well, you just know it. I've heard parents say that before. You just know it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so it just boils it down to a feeling, right? Well, feelings are good. You need feelings. But also, if you read it, it's God is patient. God is kind. He keeps no records of wrongs. It's not easily angered. Rejoices with the truth. And it goes on. That's how I want to be treated. That's how your children should be treated. That's how you want to treat your spouse, correct? So you can actually know if you are being loving. To me, that was like revolutionary.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow, okay. Because I wasn't naturally a patient person. I was very full of anger towards my husband when we became Christians, and I would tend to bottle it up, and then I'd get frustrated with my children and want to take it out on them, yell at them, or whatever. I literally had to practice going into the bathroom, taking 10 and biting my tongue and decide how I was going to respond. I was training myself to be different. So it's that kind of work that you have to invest in yourself, with your marriage, and with your kids. It's an ongoing process every single day. So I love that because you can help your kids understand that this is what God's love is. You don't want to use the scriptures just to punish, right? Well, the Bible says, One of my children used to pull that out all the time. Well, the Bible says you have to share. Okay, well, let's look that one up, right? It was for their own purpose, right? So I took that to heart, and I saw it helps you reveal you more and more every day. And then when your kids get older and they do start showing interest in God, then they have a good foundation of what's been modeled in front of them. One day my children came home and said, this child at school that they were a little bit friends with, their mommy is mean. She yells at them. And I sat there and I thought, oh, I'm so glad that my kids can see the difference. They're not defining me as that mean mommy that yells at them anymore. So, I'm just really happy that those things happen. So it's hard to see over time, and you're always very hard on yourself as a parent. And as long as you're feeling that way, then you're probably headed the right direction because you're thinking about it and you're doing something about it. And your plan has to be fluid sometimes and rethought out, or the boundaries change a little bit as they get older. Yeah. So, be flexible with it. Be full of fun. Our kids don't get enough fun, and they certainly, hear a lot of negative things at school. They're taught a lot of things that you really don't want them to remember. Mm-hmm. And you want them to develop good friendships. You don't want them just to fall into a crowd. So guide those things. We had our children on a sports team. Well, we didn't care if they were good at sports, but they had to do something. It doesn't have to be sports. It can be, music lessons or what have you, if you can afford that. Or there's free things. There's free things that they could do as well. But get them in a group of at least that might have good influences on them. I'm not always sure that all the sports teams are like that now. I don't know. But find something that you can help them to be confident in. Nikki she played basketball. She was not naturally a basketball player. somebody would bump into her and she'd back up and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." But you know what? Over time, she developed a toughness, which was really great to see. She'd get right in there and tangle with people. And, that really was a very big character builder for her. Ross had to, and this might sound bad, but he had to guard a little girl all the time when he was young on a soccer team. And he literally, because we would tell him to, be nice to girls and, so he would just back up and let her go on by, and she'd score every time. So we had to help him understand, okay, this is a different situation. Knock her to the ground, but, you can defend her, right? So, just be flexible. And like I said, be fun. Do fun things with your children. Say a lot of positive things to your children, not just good job, Johnny, that can become just kind of too rote, I guess. Compliment them on things that they really, that you see in them that are positive qualities. They're character things. Logan came up to us last night and he was just so proud that he had all these games today and he was going to be busy, and he lives right there, doesn't he, Megan? So it's like, oh well, that's really great, Logan, so he was very proud of that. So if they're proud of something, boy, you be proud of it too. Build up their characters that way. They don't hear enough good things. And the Hoopers down in Dallas, they always had that 10 positives to 1 negative. And I always try to remember that, because as a parent, the negative just comes right out. Stop doing that. No. If the natural answer is always no, right? Well, stop and think about your nose. So someone jokingly said, "Pick your nose wisely."
That's awesome.
You'll remember that, I promise, right? Pick your nose wisely. And I think that's so true, because, Charlie and I would say, okay, let's stop and talk about this. Is this really okay or not? The kids started running up to us after church. "Can so-and-so come home with us after church?" And, we'd have to change all our plans to get somebody back home or or what have you. And so we had to institute a little rule that, you can have friends over or whatever, but we're going to plan this. If it's not planned before church, then we're not doing it. You have to think about this, and so the parents can talk and arrange, and so that helped them to be more responsible in what they were wanting to do. So those are all just very simple, high-level things. We have just a few minutes. Does anyone have any questions?
This is great.
Thanks.
I think, I don't know, question.
Well, I can tell you what I really liked, which
Okay.
was the fact that I like your parallel with like the wide fence, because you want them to have freedom, but you also want them to have boundaries. And sometimes I feel like I can be really controlling over even the small things. So I feel like I'm changing the wideness of that fence, just to stay on point with your parallel there.
Right.
And I'm closing it in, and they're getting confused.
Yes, that's exactly right, Jenny.
So it's just kind of like, it's frustrating them, and it's stressing me out. So I like the idea of just, I'm a visual person, and I'm a very hands-on person, so having that in the back of my mind, just, okay, let's keep the wide fence, let's keep it consistent, and let's keep it strong. I can swallow that,
Yeah.
when things come up. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So Jenny's comment was that she likes the parallel of the wide fence because she tends to be controlling, and that confuses her children because she narrows the gate or the area, and it will help her to keep that in mind as she's working with her children. It's great.
Yeah, I just love the being always reminding to be intentional and with parenting with a purpose. And I mean, I think I get tired, and so like the day-to-day stuff, it's like, I mean, yeah. So I feel like I go through cycles of like, okay, I'm purposeful, and then it just kind of I let it go. You know, if things are going well, or I just get busy, I definitely can lose that purpose. You know, purposeful, intentional training and all of that. So I definitely appreciate that, and just the, you know, things I've heard before, but it's different stages, because now both my kids are elementary school and in school and dealing with all kinds of different things, and personally we're in times of transition, so they're all over the map, you know, like trying to figure out life. And so I feel like, sorry, I know that's a lot you try to repeat, but I feel but it's just, I appreciate that, and that we're not alone, and that we have times like this to get help and guidance, and just continue to focus back on on what's important, you know, because they are our first ministry, and no matter what we do, that's one of the most important things.
Yes, absolutely. So Megan appreciates just the remembering to be intentional about her parenting no matter what's going on. And I do think that's a good point, Megan, that, you know, situations can change. You know, maybe, you know, God forbid a divorce happens, or a loved one dies, or something drastically changes in your life that you have no control over, and those things always and will happen. So, you know, having a plan for your parenting, you can adjust. You might have to go through a little valley, or, you know, some rough patches, but, you know, your kids will know that you're there, and that you always have their best interests at heart. And you can, this is a plan that transcends, like I said, no matter what is going on. In times like that, they count on security. You know, they need that extra security. And I think that's an important point, I think. Thanks, Megan. Yeah. So I think that's about all we have. Thanks for joining us.